All right, good morning, KW Lake Country on a beautiful Tuesday, February 7th. It feels like a balmy, like 50 degrees. I'm out here in Lake Country this morning jamming with these folks. Here's the deal. My goal is to make you think today and to make you think differently than maybe what you may expect. So I'm going to jump into it. Cool? Beautiful. So we talked about a little bit about our mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives. And as we sit here in February, one of the things I want to touch on is equity and opportunities for all. And yesterday, I had an opportunity to jump on a Keller Williams International call with our president, Mark King. And Mark King made a pretty profound statement that struck me. And his statement was, his vision is to be the most inclusive company in the world, real estate related or not. And I thought to myself, that's a really bold statement, to be the most inclusive company in the entire world, outside of industry agnostic is probably a better way to put it, industry agnostic. And it made me think in terms of the way in which that we provide opportunities or inclusivity amongst our ecosystem or our squad across KW Milwaukee, and how do we provide opportunities for people? How are we making sure that our environments are incredibly inclusive and collaborative for folks? And it was a statement that I thought was incredibly profound, and it stopped me in my tracks to make me think, we play a small part in that. And what part do we play, and what part do we have in making sure that we can be a part of the solution, not the problem, if that's KW's mission, right? And a handful of things that I wanted to kind of start out the meeting with was more so to make you think, because that statement yesterday made me think long and hard about what it is that we do and how we serve our associates and how we serve our clients. And, you know, I think it's very apropos in terms of the timing of year and celebrating Black History Month in the month of February. But one of the things that I want you to make you think about is a little bit to dig deeper in terms of your level of service and who you serve, right? And, you know, one of the things that I'm incredibly proud of, or the way in which that we think, work, or act, is the entire concept that I challenge folks with every day in terms of diversity of thought, diversity of approach is incredibly powerful for our business. And we've had a few folks in our world who have wrapped their arms around each other's in ways in which that they can help others succeed, right? In helping advance our community in southeastern Wisconsin, move forward, provide progression within the way in which we live and work. And I want to give a shout out again to Shawnee for coordinating the monthly mastermind and helping those succeed in our environment. Last week, Friday night, a group of folks got together to mastermind around how they can help each other succeed and sharpen their swords and help continue to serve all sorts of folks across southeastern Wisconsin, right? Another shout out I want to give is yesterday, Keller Williams on every Monday sends out a diversity, equity, and inclusion weekly recap. And in that recap, one of our associates in KW Milwaukee was recognized. And I want to give a shout out to Angelique Cruz, who sits over in the New Berlin office, because this week, Thursday, Angelique is being installed as the chapter president for NAREP. Okay, and NAREP's mission is to serve the Latino community in obtaining sustainable home ownership and creating generational wealth. Okay, and I share these with you today because I think we all play a part in what it is that we do to provide opportunities for folks, how we create an incredibly inclusive and collaborative environment. And there are small ways in which that we can make this impact with those in which we interact with, whether it's clients, co-brokes, and of the like. And I wanted to take the group to stop, to pause, to think a little bit around what role you play in that, because I'll tell you, on my whiteboard is Mark King's words. And Mark King challenged the group in terms of how do we make Keller Williams the most inclusive and collaborative company in the entire world, agnostic of industry. And so I want to challenge you in ways in which do you think about that, right? Because in order to challenge your actions, I have to challenge your thoughts. Okay. And consider this. Everyone deserves to own a home. Okay. Why? Because it provides incredible access to resources, because it helps people realize their potential. It access to generational wealth, it access to schools people desire, it access to good paying jobs people desire. And in 2020, Morgan Stanley did a homeownership a study. In the results of the study, or the study is called "Homeownership Gaps Take a Massive Toll on the Economy." Okay, and let's just take a look at this. Homeownership gaps prevent 5 million qualified buyers from owning homes. It costs 800,000 jobs a year for those that have stable environments for which to live. It prevents an additional 400 billion in tax revenue realized. And all of this is because of homeownership gaps. And if you look across southeastern Wisconsin, we have some pretty significant gaps as it relates to homeownership, right? And you think about the ways in which our community suffers every single day, and how we can leverage our professional aspects of what we do to help make an impact in our world. And if you think about how we can make an impact in our world, specifically in southeastern Wisconsin, we can play a major part in that, right? And so consider this. Homeownership gaps, I just took one statistic and measure, right? Between whites and blacks across the United States, 75% versus 44%. Okay. As of last year, it's significantly worse across the state of Wisconsin. 72% versus 26%. Okay. And I think oftentimes we get caught up in the rat race of, I want to go sell $1 million listing. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that. But sometimes I think we lose sight of how we can make an impact, leveraging our professional standards, leveraging our professional ways in which that we can serve folks to help minimize that gap, and who in which we serve, right? And so I challenge you to think a little bit around, is my marketing inclusive? Is my marketing collaborative? Am I providing equity or opportunities for equity across our communities? And am I playing my small part? Because if we take collectively across the KW ecosystem in southeastern Wisconsin, if we take 700 people, licensed associates, and all of us do one thing, two things, three things to play the part, the impact that we can have is profound. And I would challenge you in the way in which we think about this, because here's what I know. When we make a move, I mean Keller Williams. When we make a move, it is like student body left, student body right. And there is a multitude of ways in which this shows up across the last 8 to 9 years, in which when we make a move on something, the rest of the industry follows. And I think that that's my job in terms of leading you and making you think, is to how we continue to move the ball forward as a group, right? And how we think about the ways in which that we can help people and serve others. So I'd encourage you to challenge your thoughts as an agent, right? Because here's what you need to consider. The population is becoming more diverse, not less. That is a fact. The population is becoming more diverse, not less. We have to embrace the aspect of diversity, or you as a real estate agent will become obsolete. That's a pretty harsh statement, but it's true. You have to embrace it, or you will become obsolete. Don't allow exclusivity to limit your market penetration. Think about how you can cast a wide net to serve a wide variety of folks. We have to be consistent in our approach. We have to consider the policies and procedures, the systems and models from which we work in, and are we providing a consistent approach into the way in which we serve folks? And I'll tell you, one of the number one ways in which people get caught is probably not the wrong word, or it's probably the wrong word. The number one ways in which people are educated through fair housing, the number one violation, people with disabilities, and the way in which they serve people with disabilities. And so we have to think about how we can be consistent in our approach, because inconsistencies lead to selective enforcement. Inconsistencies in our approach lead to selective enforcement. Don't get in your own way, right? So we have to think about the way in which we serve folks, how we provide a consistent level of service so that we can continue to advance the ball forward. And steering is not hard to do, okay? Steering is really not hard to do. Not steering is a far more intentional muscle to flex, okay? Not steering is a far more intentional muscle to flex. So when you hold yourself to the highest ethical standards, upholding fair housing is a core aspect of this, right? And there's two things I want to share with you today, I think, that could help open your minds as if a flower is blooming to the concept of how I make this approach. Two things. One of them is pretty simple. One's going to take a little bit of an effort. Okay. The simple one first. I'd encourage you, we've talked about this for the last probably 2 years. I'd encourage you to consider taking the Fairhaven training, fairhaven.realtor. It'll take you about 45 minutes. I'll tell you, as someone who tries to lead a life in which is inclusive and open-minded to a diverse population of folks and how I serve others, I will tell you the Fairhaven training made me stop and think on multitude of occasions, because it showed gaps or blind spots in the way in which I think and how inconsistencies to my approach may show up. And this is across a wide variety and a range in terms of fair housing, whether it's people with disabilities, whether it's race, religion, sexual orientation, things of the sort. It really, really, truly made me think. The other one, and this is a little bit of short notice, but I'm going to dive into this deeper to help integrate what their mission is within Southeastern Wisconsin into the core of what we're doing here in Milwaukee, is Axe Housing. And for those of you who don't know what Axe Housing is on an absolute mission to help bridge the gap in the homeownership gap, basically in Milwaukee. Okay. And it's an organization that I was introduced to last fall. I had the opportunity to attend their annual fundraiser downtown to better understand their organization. And since then, I've gotten involved in helping mentor and guide. They also have a brokerage with about 10 people in it that help people, typically lower income, lower credit scores, get access to affordable housing, and then provide them grants to fix up and maintain the homes in which the people are seeking access to. So I had the opportunity. They have an acquisition fund where they're starting to acquire properties. They've gotten a couple $100 million in their fund to help acquire properties in Southeastern Wisconsin to really take them out of the hands of institutional or investors. And so I've been advising them on their fund and the acquisition fund. And then the other way I've been advising them is more so on brokerage services and how do you think about running a brokerage. But this week, Wednesday, which is tomorrow, they're hosting an affordable homeownership town hall. And if this topic is something that intrigues you and you have the time, again, I realize it's a tad bit of short notice, but I'm going to continue to integrate Axe Housing and some of the things that they do into how we can help provide services to them throughout the year. But tomorrow down at Marquette University, if you'd like to join me, I will personally be there to participate in the affordable homeownership town hall. It'll be from 12 to 1:30. Immediately after team meeting, I will send you the reservation or the RSVP link if this is something if you have the time and access to, if this is something you'd like to participate in joining me. So a little bit of a different twist on team meeting this morning. I wanted to get you guys to think because, we're incredibly fortunate to have some really great leaders, whether it's Angelique Cruz, whether it's Shawnee and the group that she's leading and helping open and close various different diversity gaps or homeownership gaps or things like that. But then I also wanted to take the time and moment to really challenge the way in which that we approach our businesses and how we serve our clients and the way in which we're thinking about this, because we have to embrace this concept of diversity and how we approach it. And we need to ensure that we're being consistent, because being consistent and choosing the aspect or act of not steering is far more intentional muscle to flex than it is to simply go with what's easy, right? And so there's kind of my opening challenge and thought for the group this morning on February 7th. Cool? And if you have the time, I'd love for you to join me tomorrow, February 8th, over at Marquette University. I'll send the link out here for RSVPs shortly. Cool? Beautiful. All right, with that, I wanted to provide a little bit of a reminder because two things are happening. In my role, I have always understood that my job is to push you looking forward, right? And sometimes in that, I understand that my windshield I look at my life in terms of the windshield and the proportion to my rear view mirror. And sometimes I'm always disproportionately looking forward and forgetting to look back. And this week, Thursday, and then again on February 23rd out here in Lake Country, we want to take a moment to look back and celebrate those that had incredible years. And incredible years doesn't necessarily mean that you had the biggest book of business or achieved the whatever it may be. For some folks, the biggest year they've ever had is they achieved their goal of selling $5 million a year. They provided stability for their family. They put their kids through college. They could afford a daycare, whatever it is that may be. So stay tuned. So this week, Thursday from 9 to 11, North Shore and Innovation Crew, we have an incredible lineup for you. I'm incredibly excited for you. Join us in the North Shore office. And then on February 23rd from 9 to 11, we will be out here running the show back to celebrate folks out here in Lake Country as well. So stay tuned, and I hope to see everybody there. We have an incredible lineup for you that I think will be a really fun day to collaborate with your peers. All right, with that, Vranik, I'm flipping it over to you.
All right. Good morning, everybody. All right. Always great to see a big group on Tuesday morning. Okay. So the month of February, we have been really honing in on lead generation. And so talking about different things that you can do in Command and using other Keller Williams technology and how to lead generate. And one of my goals for this year is to provide you guys with more content that you can provide to your clients. So last week we rolled out a monthly market update email and social media post. And so this is something that you can send out every single month. It's data that's pulling from the 4-county metro Milwaukee area. It's single family and condo properties. So just like the other email smart plans that we've come out with, it's a one-step email campaign. And so you can send this out to your database at any point. And so we have the December statistics. So this was released last week. Pretty soon we'll have January statistics. And so you'll see that getting rolled out within the next week or so. And so this is a email smart plan. It's in our KW Milwaukee Smart Plan Library. It's also available as a social media post. So if you just want to take that image and share it on social media or text it out to your database, you're able to do that as well. And so this is available on our website, our KW Realty MKE website. You'll see there's a new link under resources for marketing assets. And so all of these images are going to be in that Google Drive folder. So that link was also posted on Facebook last week. If you have trouble finding any of these resources, you can always reach out to me, send me an email, shoot me a text, and I will get those over to you. But this is now available in Command under Smart Plans. So the other thing, couple updates that were made to Smart Plans is that I just want to kind of remind the group about is that in the past, a Smart Plan could only last up to 90 days. You can now create a custom Smart Plan that lasts up to 1 year. So these consist of phone calls, emails, text messages. You can set delays in between each of those steps. You can include tasks. You can specify the time that a task is that you receive through Command and through your Command app. And so more content is coming. We will be releasing a 2023 holiday Smart Plan. So just a ton more content coming, you guys. I'm super excited about all of this. And so if you have any questions on Smart Plans, Kathleen did a really great training last week over Zoom on how to create some of these Smart Plans and set these up and customize them. YouTube is not being my best friend right now. It took down the last probably 3 trainings that we've done. But we do have a Google Drive with all of those training videos. It's on our website linked. And again, if you are having trouble finding any of that, reach out to me. I'll get you those trainings. And this week, we're continuing our lead generation theme for the month, and we're honing in on the KW Consumer app. So it's a great piece of technology that you can share out with your database, with potential clients. If you are, attending different events and get-togethers, it's so easy to pick up your phone, share the app with other people. And my favorite line from Brad Gates is break up with Zillow, and this is the way to do so. So on Zoom this Thursday at 11 o'clock, join us, and hopefully this training will get uploaded to YouTube. So thank you.
Beautiful. Vranek, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, for the entirety of the group, it's been an incredible 4 years of you serving our folks at KW Milwaukee, and we sincerely appreciate all you do. It feels like just yesterday you walked in the door as a young mom, and now you have a growing family. So thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Totally. Cool. All right. With that, I'm flipping it over to, I believe, Lieutenant Kennard. What do we got on GMIR Addendum AC?
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So the compliance team, I will say we're super excited about this introduction of the GMAR Addendum AC, which is this additional contingencies addendum. We've got so many different variations of language when we're writing these competitive offers for the appraisal gap, for the inspection threshold, for escalation clause. So now we have combined it all for consistency across the marketplace. Very excited about this. So it's optional use. You're only going to employ these additional provisions. If you're in competitive offer writing, 9 times out of 10, you're only going to use it during competitive offer writing. With these provisions, you might use all 3 of them. You might choose 1 or 2 versus all 3. So hopefully I won't take up too much of your time with this, but I just did want to highlight the addendum itself, of course, and the language. So right at the top of the page, of course, this all looks familiar to you. You'll fill in the top, offer date made by the buyer, property address, of course, that all should look familiar. Use date was effective officially as of last week, February 1st. And then just a reminder, lines 6 and 7, provisions preceded by an open box are part of this addendum if marked such as with an X. They are not if marked NA or left blank. So I just wanted to remind everybody that Joni and I strongly feel that best practice is to always mark NA if you are not going to be including a provision, just so that there's no confusion at all. Okay, so then moving on, we've got this inspection threshold language now. Again, we're trying to synthesize all of the different languages that the brokerages had and making it consistent across the marketplace. So line 10 is where you're going to identify that inspection threshold. So again, the idea here is that the buyer is committing to saying that they're not going to serve a notice of defects based on any repair items that fall under a certain threshold. So for example, a buyer may not serve a notice of defects on any items totaling under, we'll say $5,000. And you'll use line 10 to put that in there. I've highlighted here the line if the seller has the right to cure defects. So just a reminder, you would not use this provision if you are not giving the seller the right to cure in the inspection contingency. Continuing on, so if the buyer delivers a notice of defects, the seller's election to cure applies only to the balance of the items for which the cumulative cost to repair or replace exceeds the amount stated on line 10. So if we fall over that threshold, if cumulative repairs are $10,000 versus that $5,000 threshold, we're only serving that notice of defects on that balance of $5,000. So obtaining estimates of costs for repair, moving on to 13 through 15. The estimates of the cost for repair or replacement shall be obtained from independent qualified professional. This should all look familiar. Seller, and there's a provision for the seller here. Seller agrees to provide access for the buyer and buyer's qualified professionals. And the buyer, and this is a provision for the buyer shall pay any costs associating with obtaining the estimates. I think it's great to have this language so that we can point it right to a buyer and say, the hook is on you to pay for these estimates. Then moving on, lines 19 through 27, this is where it would look different from what we're used to seeing and what we've used to employ. So one or more of the following provisions may also be included if checked. So line 20, we're giving the seller the opportunity to obtain estimates as well, and deliver to the buyer by the deadline for the inspection contingencies. If the estimates differ, there's a line right in here that the parties agree that they will average the different estimates for each affected item to arrive at the cost for purposes of this provision. So again, it's just a roadmap for all of this that we did not have before, which is fantastic. Line 25 through 27. Either party may extend the original deadline for the inspection contingency by a certain amount of days to allow for follow-up inspections. So if we're running out of time, it's an automatic extension if we're running out of time. There's going to be a ton of questions on this, I know. I'll try and answer as many as we can within the meeting. I should have warned Charlie that we might have needed more time, but also please feel free to call Joni and I directly with follow-up questions, especially around the escalation clause, which we'll get to. Appraisal gap language. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. What I love in here though is additional, again, provisions and warnings and reminders for our buyers. So right on line 28, buyer represents that the buyer has consulted with buyer's lender before including this provision. So a reminder to the buyer, we've got to make sure that your lender is going to allow this and that it works within the parameters of your loan, right? So 29 through 35, if the offer includes an appraisal contingency and appraisal value is less than the purchase price, buyer agrees to cover the difference up to, and then this is where, again, you'll put that appraisal gap, 5,000, 10,000, whatever means the buyer has and is willing to cover. Again, another reminder for the buyer hereby represents the buyer has sufficient funds to cover the gap and amount financed in the financing commitment contingency in this offer. Buyer is hereby prohibited from sending a notice objecting to the appraised value unless the appraised value is lower than the purchase price minus the appraisal gap. Pretty straightforward. Fantastic. Okay, the next one. This is the one I'm probably most excited about, escalation clause language. There are so many versions of this floating around. So they team at WRA came up with this based on all of the different versions of the escalation clause. Line 37 is where you're going to put in that date that offers must be received by. Line 40 is where you're going to put that incremental amount in. So going to read it here, no later than blank, which results in net proceeds of sale payable to seller equal to or greater than the net proceeds of sale payable to seller under this offer, then the purchase price of this offer shall automatically increase to an amount which generates net proceeds of sale to seller. And then that's where on line 40 is where you'll put in that incremental amount in excess of the highest net proceeds of sale generated in such other offers. Excuse me. This is a difference for us. So line 42 and 43, purchase price of this offer may be increased either once or more than once, and once is going to be the default if neither is checked. That will be a conversation back with your buyer on how you want to tailor the escalation clause. Line 44, the purchase price of this offer shall not exceed blank, and then that's where you're going to put your cap amount there. If the purchase price of this offer is increased based on one or more other offers, seller shall no later than blank days, 2 if that's left blank, excuse me, after receipt of said other offers, submit to buyer a signed amendment to the offer reflecting the adjusted purchase price. So we're kicking this in. Escalation clause has been initiated or enacted. Seller is going to email, that's line 49, a copy of the offer proving to the buyer that the escalation clause was kicked in. So you're going to put that seller or that buyer's email address on line 49. And then another provision right in here for the buyer, which I love. Sorry, geeking out about this. Buyer agrees to accept the amendment and deliver it back to the seller according to the delivery terms in this offer and by the deadline for acceptance in this amendment. So again, just making everything consistent. So many versions of this floating around, and now we've got one place for this. So, I think we are back into competitive offer writing. Again, you'll use 1, 2, or 3 of these additional provisions, based on what the buyer wants to do and how they want to be competitive. And if you're not going to use any of them, you're not going to even include this in your offer at all. So just a reminder for that. Okay. Let's look at questions.
Where can we find those, Trevor?
Steph, where can the group find this addendum?
Of course, it's in zip forms. It will be added to the global packets. It's labeled GMAR, or Greater Milwaukee Association of Realtors Addendum AC. So when you're looking for it in the library, it looks exactly like the GMAR Addendum A. But we'll have them in the global packets by the end of the day. So Kimmy and I have already connected on that. So, okay. So if we wanted it to be an individual repair under a certain dollar amount, we cannot use this, or can we modify it? Let me circle back with you on that, John.
It's a good question.
Yeah, I'll circle back on that.
We'll put together kind of an FAQ dialogue that Steph, Kimmy, and Joan will work on to send this back out. I will say, just in my conversations and dialogues with GMAR and WRA, I think, and seeing a million different versions of this from different brokerages, I do think this helps streamline co-brokes negotiations when we are utilizing a more consistent form and consistent language. Yes, Connie.
For escalation, inspection, and stuff like that.
Appraisal.
Yep.
Escalation, appraisal, and inspection.
Yep. All of those commonly used tools to help elevate in competitive offer writing.
Steph, is it a required doc?
It's not. It's optional.
And Joan gives you the double thumbs up. Sweet. All right, Steph.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate all you geeking out on your contracts and helping the group. And if you have questions while you're utilizing it, feel free to reach out to the lieutenant or the sheriff. Make sense? Beautiful. All right, Katabi, what do we got coming up from trainings and events standpoint? What do these guys need to be paying attention to?
All right, this is probably my favorite week in February. It's a work hard, play hard kind of a week. So in addition to just throwing massive parties at 10 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, we have some educational opportunities as well. Yes, Mr. Stillman.
And it's my birthday.
And it's Andy's birthday and Jamie Old Coyote's birthday. There's a bunch of birthdays this week. So Charlie, if you want to click through, we have a really unique opportunity hosted by JSG this morning, right after team meeting. So really special brokers open happening down at their development, the Lakeshore Commons, from 10:30 to 1. So you can actually get a look inside the spec homes and take a look at these really unique properties that are available. So go down there for lunch and be sure to check it out today. The address is small, so I'll read it. It's 4238 East Lake Vista Boulevard in Oak Creek. So we'll be there after team meeting today.
It's a super cool property right on the lakefront. Really cool development that JSG and F Street have been working on. So if you haven't had an opportunity to check it out, I'd encourage you, if you have some time today, go down to Oak Creek. It's a really unique property and a cool way to show how a municipality and a developer have looked at an old dumping site that they have worked for years to clean up and put together a really neat community. So if you haven't checked it out, feel free today from 10:30 to 1.
Also today out in Lake Country, we have 3 incredible producers talking about how they defend their commission on all of their deals. So go check out this panel. It is in person in Lake Country today at 10:30. We have Leanne Plooster, Paul Nikolic, and Bruce Gallagher all talking about negotiating and defending their commission. Also this week, Wednesday, February 8th, Jay will be down here in the North Shore training room talking about Profit First. Maureen came in my office the other day and was like, you got Jay to do this? She was like, my whole team will be there. She's super excited. So if she has something to learn, we all do. Learn how Jay runs his business with leading with profit. Incredible opportunity for you guys. I hope to see you all there and have a packed house this Wednesday, the 8th at 10 a.m. right here in the North Shore Trading Room. Following that, we do have, it is tax time, guys. We have 2 CPAs that are going to be hopping on a Zoom call to give best practices, advice, and all of that. Lots of stuff right now on running your business like a business as independent contractors. So be sure to jump on that call. It will be recorded. We probably won't post it, but we can send it out to you guys. But it is a big Q&A. So come prepared with some questions and get some free tax advice. And then for next week, maybe even the following, we do have the cybercrime and real estate industry, the latest types and trends coming up with Nightberry and Focus Title, both in Southwest and on Zoom on the 13th, and then the following day out in Lake Country at 10:30.
Cool. And then wrapping it up, guys, we are finishing up with the last week of Ignite. We had a great session yesterday with Marcus all around negotiating the deal. Incredibly engaging content. Feel free to check it out. And then we are closing it out with Get to the Close with Alice and Maris on Wednesday. And then Maureen is finishing it off and rounding out a great group on Friday morning. So be sure to check it out. Cool. Again, guys, I'm going to go through the January market and insights. Here's what I want you to understand. We're in a tactic-based market, okay? It seems as if we spent a lot of time on training and education. It's true. We're leaning into it, and we're trying to find ways in which to engage you so that you can dive deep into what it is that you need to do to run a successful business, however it is that you define success in 2022. You're going to continue to see more opportunities as we head into March, April, May, because the market is tough. And I'll walk you through what that looks like. So high level, what happened in the month of January? Here we go. Month of January, as it relates to units under contract. So this is forward thinking of what is potentially closing. 1,191 units went under contract across the Metro MLS, the 5-county Metro MLS area. If you think about it like this, that's 471 fewer units that went under contract this year versus last year, and 679 fewer units that went under contract this year versus January of 21. You can see here across the dotted line is the 2-year delineation over the last 2 years. You can see the market from a deal activity standpoint on a units based is incredibly suppressed. Here's why. Okay. When you look from a sales absorption standpoint, and this is the percentage of inventory that goes under contract in a given month, last month in the month of January, we're at 26.9%. That's down 13% over the last 2 years consecutively. Okay, so this is where you're starting to see somewhat of softening buyer demand as it relates to the inventory. However, when you look at 1,191 units that came under contract, here's a little sneak peek. There were 1,400 units that came onto the market, new units. Yes, there's somewhat softening demand. It's also the cyclical nature of where we are within January. A down 13% isn't nearly as bad as a down 28, down 30% as it relates to the softening demand. I think it's a function of 71% of people in southeastern Wisconsin have less than a 4% interest rate. We're having trouble bringing inventory to the marketplace, which is creating a larger kink in the pipeline of what's going on. Now let's take a look at average days on market. In the month of January of this year, it was 42 days on market across the entire southeastern Wisconsin. That was flat versus prior year, okay? And it was 21% faster than January of 21. Okay, what this tells me is the market is still moving efficiently despite lower inventory and net rising interest rates. The efficiency of the market and the rate in which the market is moving is still moving at a relatively fast pace. Okay, the fact that it's flat versus last year and 21% faster versus prior year also is the indicator for me where I would be a bit more concerned is if all of a sudden we saw days on market and months of supply inventory spiking at significant levels, which we haven't seen yet so far in January. It's something I'm paying attention to very closely as we head into February, March, and April and getting into the teeth of the spring selling season. Okay, months of supply inventory, 2.3 months of supply. That is up 25% versus last year and up 20% versus January of 21. It went from 1.9 months of supply to 2.3 months of supply. Again, when you're running at such low relatively base units of 1.9 and 2.0, anytime you go up 1/10 of a point or 2/10 of a point, it's going to look like the percentage increase is pretty significant. For me, where I get a bit more concerned is as we start crossing the 3 threshold and into the 4 threshold, then you can start to see that the market is starting to balancing out. You'll see days on market prolonging, haven't gotten there yet, but they're metrics I'm paying attention to as we head into the spring. New inventory units. This is what I mentioned earlier. If you recall, there were 1,191 units that went under contract off of new inventory that came to the market of 1,453. Okay. What we have seen and continue to see is the fact that because new inventory was down 30% versus last year and down 28% versus the year before, if you look at it, basically what's happening on units that are going under contract and where deal activity is being suppressed is simply the lack of inventory to meet the demand. How do I know this and where will it continue to show up? Well, it's really difficult to make up 634 the delta of 634 units that came onto the market last year that didn't come onto the market this year. You're going to see that lagging effect as we head into the spring, and the units going under contract won't change until units coming to the market from an inventory standpoint, new inventory standpoint changes. So it's the number one metric I'm paying attention to. Okay, total inventory in the month of January, there were 4,420 units. It was down 970 units, 907 units versus prior year, or down 1,600 units versus January of 21. Again, as we look ahead to the spring and what the forecast for what spring will bring us, this is the two most concerning metrics as it relates to potential deal activity within the marketplace, because you simply can't make up a lack of 1,000 units that just aren't available this year versus prior years. So the longer that prolongs, the longer you're going to see units going under contract and closed deals continue to prolong. And as the inventory starts to spike up, that's when you'll start to see the market shift where the thing will start to get back going. Again, I'm bullish on the long-term outlook of our market, but I'm real in terms of, I think 2023 is going to be a tough slog. And again, the longer that we can weather the storm, stay consistent in our approach, be optimists and being real about where we are, but being positive about the future outlook, will continue to give you the resources and willpower to continue to play the game. Make sense? Beautiful. Last thing as it relates to impact on pricing. Here's the interesting dynamic on the whole thing, because everybody wants to know, oh, the market's softening, the market's softening, the market's softening. Well, yes. And the average price point in the month of January was up 14% versus 2022 and up 19% versus 2021. When you look at the median, and the median takes all units that go under contract across all price points and cuts it right down the middle, it's more of a true indicator of where pricing is headed. Median price points were up 11% in January versus last year and up 19% versus 2021. Okay, supply and demand. Supply and demand, supply and demand, supply and demand. Demand still remains relatively healthy. Some people, yes, are sitting on the sidelines while rates are going down. It's the number one reason why people aren't bringing inventory to the market. And we just have to weather the storm with where we go. It's the metric. I'm paying attention to a few very close metrics on a weekly and monthly basis to help advise you guys as to where the industry is heading, so that we can stay engaged in the game and do what you need to do in order to get what you want out of this business. Make sense? Beautiful. Having said that, it's 9:45. And we're going to flip it over to Lake Country Group. I'm going to jump over to the Lake Country Meetup, North Shore and Innovation Crew. I'll let you guys jump over to new listings and buyer needs. For those that are interested, I will send out the registration link for the Axe Housing event tomorrow morning if you're interested. And guys, be an agent of change. Have a great week, guys.